Pam Vavra is going to speak about, give an overview of legal defense trainings. She's with the Civil Liberties Defense Center, and will give us kind of an overview of how those trainings work and what they can provide for us, maybe in terms of civil disobedience and other actions. And here she is.
All right, thank you, Pam. Thanks very much. I really appreciate being here today. I have only recently joined the Civil Liberties Defense Center. And to give you an idea, this is a 9-year-old organization that started in Eugene, Oregon. Some of you may be aware of it. It was started by a woman named Lauren Regan. And she started it, she had been involved with the ACLU and other similar organizations and decided to break out on her own to be able to provide more nimble support to local protesters. And particularly, she was concerned about several acts that had come out. One is the AETA, which is the Animal Enterprise Terrorism Act. And very much like the Patriot Act, this has been an act that has tried to label protesters as terrorists. So instead of getting a 2-year sentence for perhaps burning down a facility that is cruelly and inhumanely slaughtering wild mustangs that the BLM is helping to herd to the facility, instead of getting a 2-year sentence, these people were given 20-year sentences. And because now they're labeled terrorists. So in addition to legally representing some of these more radical protesters such as that, she also began going around the country talking about the Patriot Act, this Animal Terrorism Act, giving lectures. And she found that there was still a real need to give basic know your rights training, legal observer training, and things like this. Now, the National Lawyers Guild has always been an organization that one turns to for these types of trainings, particularly the legal observer training. They are the ones that you see with the lime green hats in a lot of these videos. And they have a very strong program for doing that. Until recently, they relied primarily on law students and lawyers to be able to do this. And one of the things that Lauren has done locally in Eugene was to demystify that whole process and to empower many more people to be able to do these kinds of functions. So that people who maybe weren't interested in being a part of the protest but maybe wanted to support it in another way could have another avenue for doing so. So she has, about a year ago, Ralph Temple, who lived in Ashland, recently deceased, started a local chapter of the Civil Liberties Defense Center so that he could provide some of the same types of services here locally. And so Lauren trained myself and another person to give these kinds of trainings here locally. And I am a newly admitted law student at Santa Clara Law, so I'll be leaving in August to do a 3-year stint. And the reason I did this is because I had tried all the things that we've all been talking about. I've been a hardcore activist here in the Rogue Valley. I put forth a petition to try to change our voting system in the city of Ashland so that we'd have instant runoff voting. In the city of Ashland, what often happens is we'll have several progressive candidates splitting the vote, and then a conservative, more conservative, there's no such thing as a conservative in Ashland. Well, more and more there is, but it's all relative, let's put it that way. So I put forth a petition, but I really couldn't get traction. Peter Buckley helped me. We went to the state legislature. We tried to get it admitted there. And I think that's still a very worthwhile avenue. But my point is that I also tried, I ran for city council in the city of Ashland. I lost by 25 votes. So I'm a loser, but I think that all these activities still continue to be very worthwhile. And I just found that I was running into brick walls everywhere I turned. And so I'm going to try one more thing, and that is to get a law degree and see if maybe I can move a few more bricks that way. But the types of trainings that the Civil Liberties Defense Center gives are the same kinds of trainings that you'll be seeing that the ACLU gives also. There's a local ACLU network, and the two organizations are very similar, and we're hoping that we're going to be able to coordinate in a lot of areas. Like I said, our organization, the Civil Liberties Defense Center, is only a year old in our local chapter. So I visited today with the ACLU Action Network, and they're going to be doing Train the Trainers for the Know Your Rights training and Legal Observer training also. So you're going to see a lot more of this, hopefully. What we have done locally, I've given 2 trainings so far on the Know Your Rights training, which I'm going to hand out. I'll pass these out now. I've got a sign-up sheet in case people are interested in either of these trainings, and ACLU brochure that gives just basic Know Your Rights tips. But for the Know Your Rights training, basically there are 3 levels of interaction that you might have with a police officer if you're doing some sort of direct action or involved in a protest. The first is just conversation. And just like if your mother-in-law came up and started to talk to you, you could say, you know, I prefer not to talk to you. And you can say that to a police officer if that is the level of engagement that you're at. But the next level is detention, where you may ask the officer, and it's very important to ascertain, am I free to leave or am I being detained? And depending on the answer to that question, your rights and expectations change. For example, if you are being detained, the officer can pat you down looking for a weapon. They can't open your Altoids box for looking for pot, and they can't, you know, stick their hands in your pockets, not legally. But if they do, it's really important to know not to resist that activity, but to simply say, I do not consent to this search. So these are the kinds of things that we teach in this hour-long Know Your Rights training. There's one really magic phrase, though, that I'm going to ask each of you to repeat for me, because no matter what situation you're in, if you are detained, it's very important to say, I choose not to talk and I want to see a lawyer. So would you repeat that?
I choose not to talk and I want to see a lawyer.
What that does is it puts this bubble around you so that the police can no longer ask you any questions. Now, you can break that bubble yourself if you choose to. You might say, wow, you really look nice in that uniform, or something like that. Nice day, isn't it? And now you've broken that bubble yourself, and they can resume asking you questions. So, you know, you have to be really careful about these things. And another area of interest for the Civil Liberties Defense Center is to give education about the ways in which the government is infiltrating and spying on progressive organizations, Occupy movements, things like that. So when we do open it up for questions and answer, even in the Know Your Rights training and the Legal Observer trainings, we make it really clear you need to presume, it is only prudent to presume that the person sitting next to you is an informer. I don't mean to be spreading conspiracy theories or anything like that or making people paranoid, but it is only prudent to assume that the person sitting next to you could be an informer. So if you do ask questions in these kinds of trainings or, you know, in any kind of a setting like this, it's not a good idea to talk about, you know, the other day when I was participating in some activity and I did such and such that could quasi be considered to be a terrorist activity. Don't talk about stuff like that in public, because anybody could then bring everybody in this room into court as a witness that this person said something like that. So, again, I don't mean to be making people overly paranoid, but you need to be aware of this very real possibility and be able to defend yourself in those kinds of situations. The Know Your Rights training is a 1-hour-long presentation, and we do it with a PowerPoint slideshow, and we try to have at least one attorney on hand to answer very specific questions. We try to also infuse it with local knowledge about how are the laws in Ashland versus Medford, perhaps similar or different regarding camping, or what are the likelihoods of certain kinds of fines and charges? Which one might be a misdemeanor? When is it just going to be a violation? When can I be expected to? When can I expect to be able to satisfy a judgment with community service versus when might I actually have to serve jail time? So we try to infuse it with that kind of information.